everybody, and yes, welcome back to another episode of B2B Breakfast to Business with your morning girl, where we talk shop, we talk life, we talk advocacy, and we talk real. Today, it's the beautiful month of October, meaning it's beautiful because, we've gone through so much and we really have to celebrate that we are now in October. But there are so many things happening in October. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. October is also the time when a lot of business leaders are coming together for their planning. And so it's really busy and it's really, I would have to say, manic in a little way, right? But at the same time, we are celebrating actually mental health month because World Mental Health Day is happening on October 10, right? And so we wanted to make sure that this episode will speak on or talk about everything that Breakfast to Business is all about. We're going to talk shop because, this is a very important agenda in the business environment, really, especially as we live and claim this unfolding normal, right? Mental health and overall well-being is so important that it should be part of the overall business agenda, especially as we go into 2022. We talk life because mental health awareness is super, super important in our everyday life. There are so many people who go through it. There are so many people who are also allies and supporters. But for those folks who are also wanting to learn more, this is a beautiful time to be able to dig deep and learn more about overall well-being from this podcast episode. And we talk advocacy and we talk real because this is an important agenda to just talk about and to have a conversation about. And so I could not think of a better person to bring back, yes, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, bring back to B2B Breakfast to Business than our amazing Level Up podcast host and partner, Jenn Simons, who is the communications manager of Uploan Philippines. And she is also the producer and host of, as I mentioned, the Level Up podcast. She is a communications expert looking for meaningful ways to cultivate employee wellness, and her thrust is making employee wellness a priority because it makes business sense. And it makes absolute sense that we are bringing her back here at B2B Breakfast to Business to be able to talk about overall well-being and the importance of mental health awareness. And so with that, I am bringing back on the microphone, Jenn Simons. Hi, Jenn. Hello, hello.
How are you, Bea? It's so good to be back.
I'm good. It's October, Jenn. Where did time go?
I know, right? It's Christmas already. I mean, on the radio at least.
And on Spotify, as you can see, there are a lot of Christmas playlists already, finding itself on your screen, right? It's Christmas. Our team does countdowns now, right? And then I'm like, really? Really? It's 80 days till Christmas? When did that happen? And I'm like, getting hives. I love Christmas. But then at the same time, you're like, wow, where has time
Where did
gone?
the time go? Really?
Right.
It feels like nothing has really happened because we physically haven't moved too much, right?
Exactly.
In the past 2 years. But it's been a while. Time has passed and things are actually different, right?
Absolutely.
It's been wow. Has it been a year since we spoke?
Not even, Jenn.
Not yet. Okay.
You know what? Good. We spoke last May because we actually wanted to talk about mental health and overall well-being as we finished H1, right? As we were working towards H1 and saying, hey, you know what? I think, mental health and overall well-being is so important as we continue to, I don't want to just say figure out, but as we continue cultivating, right, and trying to develop and create our overall well-being programs in the workplace, the conversation has to be front and center, right? That's what we talked about. And so, we talked about last May, and I was just actually going back, Jenn, to our conversation. It feels like it's been 10 years, by the way, since May, but then, okay, we'll stick to 6 months, right? But Jenn, I was thinking about it. One of the things that we said during that time was the big tango, right? The beautiful dance of tango between business leaders and their teams, and their employees as we create this overall well-being programs and opportunities in the workplace, because there needs to be this beautiful balance, this beautiful dance between these two parties and everything in between, right? To really make it work and to really make it better for everybody, for all the stakeholders in our businesses. And so that was actually the last thing that we sort of like talked about, Jen. And I'm so excited that you are back now, because I know that your group Uploan has actually come up with the next rendition of that employee satisfaction survey, right? And so I wanted to start our conversation on that, right? So how has the Upload satisfaction survey been going, and how has it been since we last talked?
Well, our first of all, we've gotten so many more people involved. And like, I guess everybody's so used to taking surveys now where it's like, okay, yes, I will join your survey. Whereas previous to the pandemic, you really had to work to get people to answer questions for you. Now, I think that perhaps employees have realized that it does take two to tango, and you do need to speak up. You do need to make yourself heard in order to have your needs met. What's interesting about it is that while at the end of 2020, priorities were around individuals' development, like, and their place in the professional environment. Like, the first concern was professional growth, right? Because I think that was a reaction to being thought of as essential in the workplace. This year, the most important thing on Filipino employees' minds is health and well-being. There were over almost 40% of our 14,000 respondents said that family well-being was the most important thing to them. So this is an extraordinary change. And the other things that were, the second and third most important things to them were personal finance and mental health. So that was really quite shocking to me, that the responses I expected last year are now the responses. It seems like there's been a shift from being concerned about yourself in the environment of, surviving in the workplace versus like surviving just in general, and realizing that longer term commitments are the things that are going to keep you happy, make you feel safe, and keep you functioning as your best self.
Yeah. No, but it's very interesting, Jen, that you actually went ahead and said, and wow, first of all, 14,000 respondents. That's a huge, huge, huge pool of beautiful insights. So congratulations, Uploan, for getting all of those, because it's what we need. We actually need data to be able to really look into what we can do, right? So 14,000 is absolutely amazing. I love that you said, Jen, you already started to compare 2020 results from 2021, and you said the results that you were expecting last year. And I recall that you were so surprised actually with the results of last year, and comparing it with this year is that health and wellness did come in, right, as the reigning, the queen of the priorities, or what is deemed most essential and important in this now normal. And I was thinking about it that, maybe it's also because there was time for us to dig deeper, right, into what, like what you said, what is really truly important to all of us. At the start of the pandemic, I think, just going back there very quickly, it was really about, hey, this is just temporary, right? And, in 2 months, 3 months time, we may be able to go back to how it used to be. But as everything unfolded, and we've seen ourselves really go through epic, massive shifts, and it's like a ping pong, right? It's like and it's quite fast, the different changes that are happening. Now more people have time, right? We have more time to really dig deep into seeing what's happening around us and what's truly important for us. What do you think about that?
Well, I hate to use this phrase, but these challenging times have really stretched on, right, beyond what anyone has anticipated. One of
Yeah.
my favorite interviews on the Level Up podcast this season was with Shane Betts. He was the head of learning and development for Sykes. He was saying that initially when the pandemic hit, it was like a 24-hour fire drill. And everybody was just, like, let's survive this. Let's get through this. It was not, I wouldn't say panic, but it was definitely a state of emergency, right? And that state of emergency has extended beyond our capability to remain in that state of heightened awareness and fast-paced sort of response. Even though the changes, as you said, have been coming very quickly, we've learned by now that we can't just keep responding to them in a way that is not sustainable, because I feel that we have been changed by those reactions that we've had already.
Yeah.
And we've learned, and that so restores my faith in humanity. Like, yes, we are evolving, just in a matter of a year, 6 months, 10 months, we have grown up quite a bit.
That's beautiful. Jen, just to bring back a beautiful conversation also that we had with Michelle Chan Krause, the podcast right before this, right? She talked a lot about the leadership that we need, post COVID. And one of the things actually that we touched on surprisingly during our conversation was how this time around we need to evolve our immediate response. Like, the immediate response is to just look at the here and now and the present and just go short term, to actually really truly digging deep and giving yourself more time. Yes, I have to respond to this. If I had my 100%, I do have to respond to this, and it is immediate. And yes, there has to be short term solutions for personal and professional, I think, but only 30%. The 70%, I need to think long term already. I need to give myself that hope and that motivation to already actually extend your energy for a longer term solution building, whether it's for your personal life or your professional life, right?
Yeah, that really hits me on a personal level, Bea. Like, I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to that understanding that you are going to get depleted. We're not machines. We need rest. We don't, I think we understand now that the concept of wellness goes beyond physical fitness and avoiding sick days. It's about being present and being able to deal with that long term, being able to think strategically in each moment and managing your energy. Like, energy is actually now being spoken of as a resource at the workplace, which previously, I mean, that meant electricity, right? And now it's like we're realizing that people can be depleted and burnout is a real thing. I mean, languishing is something that people have been talking about for the past, like, since April, right? The New York Times put out a big article about it, and everybody was talking about how you were feeling and at work. And that was the headline instead of being pushed to the bottom of the conversation. So even if there was focus on wellness, obviously health, because we're in a pandemic, there is a totally different aspect of wellness that needs its own set of guidelines in the workplace. And perhaps this has always been the case, but now I think that mental health conversation is at the executive planning session for 2022. I think, at least that's my guess. I would bet on that. Do you think people are talking about this?
I would. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to go into our own plannings in the next couple of weeks, right? And that is always going to be now a topic. Not just a topic, sorry, but actually part of the agenda, because it's so important to be able to to talk real. Actually, I'm just going to say it. I mentioned it earlier. Talk real. We're not just saying that it's something that, let's just talk real. Mental health is important, but no, it's really actually say, okay, this is important. Now, what are we gonna do about it? Right? What are we going to do about it? And that's why, Jen, when you said that energy now is being seen as a resource, I was like, hallelujah. Someone else agrees with me because I agree. Like, energy is a word that's thrown out there, but it's such a beautiful thing, but actually also so precious. When people tell you that you have such great energy, that is so precious because it takes a lot from you to be able to put out energy, right? So energy is truly a gift, and it's a gift of everybody. And now our goal and our role from a personal and also from a business standpoint is where to put our energy because it's so precious. And now that, as you said, burnout is real. Languishing is something that we have also seen a lot. And there are a lot of different moving pieces around us. Energy is what you need to be able to take care of and protect, right? From a micro and macro perspective. Jen, I know that you and I can start talking about this, and just go and probably talk for days about this conversation. So I want to kind of bring it back for business leaders because I love the thought that you left me with earlier, which is that I would bet that mental health is going to be a huge topic of conversation in all of these business planning and agenda, right? So I want to be able to give our business leaders a sneak peek into that survey again, right? So again, 14,000 people, great respondents, great insights. What are the top three? And if you could give us a little bit more detail, right? Top three issues of employees nowadays. And if we could break it down a little bit more so that we can provide data to our business leaders.
Absolutely. I'm only going to mention the findings where we got over 30% of respondents to kind of simplify it for everybody. It's really interesting that the top interest was, as I mentioned, health and well-being. Under that, it was specifically family well-being and then physical fitness, right? I think this is a no-brainer. Everybody wants to stay healthy, and everybody knows that that they can affect their family. Everybody who they're living with could potentially get ill if they get sick. So right. That's a huge aspect. Like suddenly in the workplace, whether your team is working from home or not, they are responsible not just for their family's financial situation, but also for their physical well-being. So that's a huge finding, and people are starting to realize that about their own responsibility. There is an additional burden there. The second largest concern was personal finance. Building your savings had 35% of our respondents concerned, because usually, investment is at the top of this list. But now I'm so heartened that building your savings and this long-term habit of thinking of the future is top of mind, because that saving habit, or just, a foundation of having a cushion of protection, gives you so much peace of mind. And mental health is, in my opinion, the most important of the top three issues that we discussed on the survey. Finding motivation and handling workplace stress were at the top of the list of concerns of 57% of the 14,000 people that we surveyed. So motivation and keeping yourself upbeat is exactly the definition of managing your personal energy well, right? Like staying motivated, not just focused, not just productive, but actually wanting to do what you must do or what you've committed to doing is, I can't even put into words how important that is, right? Like,
absolutely.
And in the past, so many of our interviews with employees about their work is shifts towards the obligation and the burden of having to work versus wanting to work and loving your work. And usually you're considered so lucky if you say you love your job, right? I feel like that's when I first got a job, right? It was really just like, oh my gosh, what's the salary? Okay, I'll have SSS, and I'll be, I'll be able to contribute to a house one day through Pag-ibig. And now it's like people want to care about what they're doing. They want to be at work, which I think presents a huge challenge to HR teams and business leaders, because let's face it, having a workforce scattered across the country or sometimes even the world, right? I mean, it's not a new challenge for the BPO industry, for example, but keeping everybody connected to a feeling that keeps them motivated is such an intangible idea. So I can see how it could be really intimidating for a lot of people to pursue this as a goal next year during their planning. So that's definitely something I would suggest that people start thinking about.
No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing all of that, Jen. I mean, I actually resonated with everything that you shared, right? From health and well-being being, the top priority, especially taking care of your family. Oh my goodness, that has just been, I think, the number one priority of a lot of people. Our priorities have shifted really towards that scale because there is that reality that anything that we do could possibly affect, right? And, in this pandemic, let's just call it out, we're scared. We're scared to infect people. We're scared that things could happen to our immediate circle. So that is already pressure, right, from a health and wellness standpoint. And of course, personal finances is actually also very, very important. But what really, really struck me most, Jen, about what you said was finding motivation and handling workplace stress. And I love that 57% of your respondents actually said, yes, you know what, I am going to be honest about this. And this is one of the things that is truly what is happening. Because aside from, purpose, like what you said, right? People want to like being in their environments and in their businesses. We go back to company purpose. We go back to brand purpose. Why are you here? Like, everybody knows this already, but my favorite quote really from Simon Sinek is, people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. And I truly believe that people choose their companies nowadays, or choose to be part of teams and choose to be part of brands because they are resonating with the why. But there's a but, right? Even if your why is so strong, the second thing that you said is very clear: connection. You can feel very connected to the purpose and you're going to go for it, and your personal energy is going to go for it. But then the other part is wanting to feel connected and to belong to your community, especially at a time when we can't see each other and we can't, go out and experience things. There is that new currency, which is connection. And now that really is that is going to be the topics of conversation, one after the other, Jen, in business planning. I can already see it. My agenda next week, right? It's like, it's not just about our people, right? People is a huge pillar, but people suddenly branches out to so many different things, right? It's not just going to be your people strategy, but your people strategy from not only training and development and personal development, but it's also all about overall well-being, culture management, which has connection. But at the same time, there really is going to be that mental health aspect, right? So, all of the things that you said, actually, I can see it being woven together in this very intricate fabric, which is human connection, right? Human connection. So, yeah, Jen, like if we were to go into path forwards, on that note, paths forward, because I really want to be able to help all of our business leaders and our friends out there who are going to go into the boardrooms, the virtual boardroom, so to speak, right? What do the results of the survey mean for business leaders or HR practitioners as we prepare for 2022? Like, what can we do to help them out?
The thing is, I think everybody has to shift the mindset away from pure profit, right? Obviously, without profit, our businesses don't exist. In order to support profit, people have to be right up there with them. So for me, that's number one. The concept of priorities has to shift to put people in the center of the strategy. There are lots of ways to do that, but I think that every HR practitioner has their own style, right? Like, you know your culture best, and you're there to bring your own self into it. And that's a whole conversation that you're going to have with your team. And as an HR leader in particular, because those are the people who we speak with most at Uploan, I hope you bloom in the limelight. Like, I really wish you the best, and it's your time to shine now, right? One of the things that I really hope that you guys push for as business leaders, whether you're in HR or not, is an additional policy. I know policy is like not the most enjoyable thing to talk about, but a mental health policy is something that's actually really simple to draft. And all that you'll need to do is I mean, I can send you a couple of links for templates and stuff, but the basics really that you can do now, even before you start with your planning and creating that mental health policy, is start forcing people to take their leaves. This is something we've done. So at Uploan, we've decided that, you know, only a certain percentage of the leaves can be converted to cash, and all the managers have been tasked with, hey, everybody needs to actually take a mental health break. Like this, you are accountable for your team's rest time. So we have a monthly check on how much overtime everybody's doing. These simple, small things that just force people to use the resources that we already have in place. The government mandated rules need to be pushed to your team, right? Like in our, I don't know how it is with you guys, but we have so few sick days now because everybody's working from home. So in case they're not feeling 100%, they're still coming into work. Maybe that's a testimony to our culture. I don't know. I'm really proud of my team. But that's one thing. Another, something that helped me personally get out of a mindset that wasn't helpful for me was giving myself permission to enjoy. So that's something that I would suggest for the remainder of the year. You know, as we said, it's Christmas already in Manila, in the Philippines. Like let's book some time to have fun. You know, one of my favorite guests on the Level Up podcast is Dr. Leah Bernardo. Everybody calls her the happiness doctor, and she calls this like just becoming friends with yourself. A big part of liking yourself and enjoying yourself is witnessing other people enjoy you, right? So that's another thing that you can schedule into the remaining months of this year. Have some fun. There's so many ways to do it online. It's not the same as doing a trust fall exercise, but it will establish bonds that will fill a gap within your individual team members that will give them the strength to help themselves also.
Yeah.
Because we need to, as business leaders, we need to empower people to help themselves and fill their own cup so that they understand also what their why is and how it connects to everybody else's reason for being where they are.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Jen. And thank you for sharing, you know, some of the things that you guys are doing in Uploan. Such a fabulous company and team that's really, you know, very conscious about bringing everybody together and taking care of one another. One of the things that actually I thought about, or the thought bubble that came to my head earlier, is yes, mental health policies are easy to draft, right? And we can pinpoint the different things that we want to be able to do. And we don't need to look far, right? We actually also just have to ask ourselves, what do you need to make this happen? Like, you as a person, forget that you are a manager, forget that you are a director, forget that you are a vice president or a president or CEO. What do you need to keep that fire burning? Because, a lot of that energy is also going to come from you. So we don't even need to look far, right? So writing it up is there. But I love what you said, is that we also have to empower each other to make sure it's implemented. Because we can have, I love what you said, like, policy is not the most fun word, right? Like, maybe we can find, maybe Jen, you and I can come up with a new word for this mental health policy, right? So it's not as intimidating, or like, to sound like another another business policy or whatever. But then implementation is key, right? Implementation is key. And I would just like also to share, because you also asked, like, what are the things that you're doing in Team Asia? That's actually one of the things that we did. We actually asked ourselves, like, what are the things that we need? And I love that a lot of the answers actually came from feedback and ideas from our own team. I think I touched on this with you before when we were sharing stories, Jen, but even pre-pandemic, I have to say, about 7 or 8 years ago, we came up with this concept of pop-up, right? Which we stopped working per month as a team back in 2013, where we would just break the work week, or the break the work month, and just say stop working for just a couple of hours and spend time as a team. This was pre-pandemic. It was really more culture building. Like, hey, you know what? We're in marketing. We need to be creative, but we also need to love each other. Come on.
You really have such a great culture. Your team is so bubbly, right? Like, you guys are effervescent. It's really quite something.
Thank
Please
you.
continue.
So we had spa dates, donuts and coffee, like laugh trips, and then we even have an annual Halloween. We call it Takot. Team Asia, Takot, T and A capital, and then we just want to like spook each other out and stuff. So this was pre-pandemic, but then I am so grateful we did that 8 years ago, because it has been a tradition in our company, in our team, to be able to just say, you know what, we're going to stop working together. And I'll be very honest with you, Jen, that it's been hard to put it in the virtual space, because before we could just say, hey, let's all go down, let's all go down and play. Let's all go down and have a pizza, let's all dance together. Let's have a talent show. Let's spook our clients out with our Halloween costumes. And it's harder to be able to do that, while I have, we've had the Kahoot games, and then the quiz bees and the quiz nights and whatnot. It's been quite hard, because of course you still want to feel that connection. But you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it any day, because even if it's hard, and even if it's going to be the same, we're still on Zoom. It's still that time where we can say, let's stop working together as a team. So that's one of the things that we're doing. But I love what you said, being able to sort of like, really empower your people to take your leaves because you need a mental health break. I just wanted to share that I had to take my own mental health break. And, that's one of the things that we actually did. We said, hey, you know what? We should really encourage our teams to take their leaves quarterly. Just take a few days off. Like,
Quarterly is a great idea,
right?
Because we were just like, now it's like, oh, one whole week. I have to take a week off? Really? Like,
exactly, right? And there's that, in a way, you're like, oh, before it was like vacation. Now it's like, how about all the things I need to do? And then you're like, where do I go? And so there's like this panic, right? So we're like, okay, don't panic. So so we said that we have this remote work playbook that we place it there. Hey, so these are the things, like, hey, take your leaves quarterly. Let's have time blocks. Everybody have lunch 12 to 1. Do not message. Do not. But and like what I said earlier, I had to take my own mental health break. And that actually was the first thing that came to me, is that we need to really work on implementation. Because, admittedly, and I have to admit this as well, because it is a challenge to implement, right? Was I thought I didn't need it. I thought I could go on and on and on. And then suddenly at one point I said, hey, you know what? I actually do need to take a mental health break. I took a week off. And I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. I just had the 8 hours of sleep that was needed, read a book about not leadership and not management, there were some fairies in there, and enchanted.
Yes, magic.
I mean, a girl needs that, everybody needs that. But you know what? I was so productive. First day back at work, all of the things, email was cleaned up, all of the to-do list was done. There is just a difference when you take that mental health break. Right. And so I just wanted to go back to that, Jen, because it's a reality that it's hard. It's hard to really also be strict on implementation. So I think I just wanted to also give that reality there. Like, hey guys, yes, mental health policies, we should have them. We should have the programs in place, but let's also work on making sure we implement it.
Absolutely. What
Right?
what do you think people can do though? Like we have an admin assistant per department, and it's basically their role to report like overtime at the end of every month, right? And then if a team has done too much overtime according to whatever the standard is at our company, then we put a cap on overtimes in the next month. So it's a little bit micromanaged, I think, but that's because we have that person who is in charge of, keeping track of attendance, right? Because that's also, at least for a startup like us, it's pretty challenging because we don't have the tech infrastructure that maybe the larger companies might have for attendance, for example, right? But there, another thing that I just thought of it, another thing that our admin assistants do is they set up a simple Google form where everybody can put in appreciation notes. We have an intranet that the HR manages, and we put thank you notes in there because like gratitude is a huge motivator for yourself, and appreciation, like giving appreciation is a big mood booster at work, right? So that's another thing maybe.
I love that. No, that big question that you shared also, Jen, right, was, what are the things that we can do to make sure that happens? And I love that you have, the term micromanage or macro managing, for me, whatever works, right? Whatever works, because we all have to do our part to make it happen. And what's so beautiful, by the way, in this unfolding normal, is we can experiment. And we should not be afraid to experiment, right? Like,
that's true.
There's this book that I read, Jen, that's called Present Over Perfect. I'll let you sit on that. Because I know you're gonna love that, right?
Just the title, I'm already sold. Absolutely.
I know. So like present over perfect. Like before there was this, and I am guilty. I had to be perfect for everything, the policy is there, implementation is there, and whatever. Like, it's already tried and tested and whatnot. But then right now, there is we need to have more room and acceptance for experimentation so we can really truly know what will work for our team. Right? Because not I'm not going to have all of the answers as a business leader. I'm just not. I wish I could, but I can't. I don't. And like I love that you always use the word empowerment, Jen, and encouragement, because there is that empowering our people, empowering our managers, our direct reports, and the people. I want everybody to know that this is their piece. Mental health, we talk about safeguarding mental health. It's everybody's responsibility. And it's not just a responsibility of you as a person who is taking care and protecting your mental health and your energy, or your business leader who needs to put that in the agenda, but everybody in your community. And so let's just say your company, right? We are all safeguarding our mental health. So let's do this. Like what you said, your admin assistants, they have a role to play. Your directors and managers have a role to play. Our teams and our employees have a role to play. Our business leaders have a role to play. Our clients also have a role to play. Our stakeholders. So I just see it as really an ecosystem, for overall well-being programs to work. I suddenly was inspired, Jen, with our conversation that it is an ecosystem. You know how they say it takes a village to raise a child? Well, maybe that child is mental health, guys. Maybe that child is overall well-being, and it really does take a village to raise that.
Well, another perspective, I love that African proverb. And I think maybe that mental health, that child that is mental health, you have to think of it as inside of you, right? We have to understand that there is still an inner child within each of us. And that child needs to be heard, right? And that we can think of that child as our own mental health. Right? That might be a useful way to shift your thinking, right? Like there, I was reminded of a study that Deloitte ran where they have this whole business in the community arm that I only heard about when I started doing research on mental health for this month. And it showed that 76% of like supervisors in all the workspaces that Deloitte supports, I mean, that's probably like 100,000 workspaces. They believe that employee well-being is their responsibility, but only 22% of them have received any kind of training on mental health at work. So there's a huge gap there. And there's always been a huge gap. At the beginning of the pandemic, our DOH secretary raised a flag and said, hey, we don't have enough mental health professionals in this country. We have one mental health professional for every 100,000 Filipinos. So I want to encourage everybody to get on Udemy and take this mental health ambassador course. It's not free, but they do sales. So it's maybe 500 pesos on sale, right? $10. Just take it. If you have the time, if you have that resource to spend, then invest in this, guys, because it's not just going to help you. It's going to be a massive help to your whole community and just transform your life.
Jen, absolutely. I hear you, sister. We're raising the flag. And you know, I would like to encourage also folks to be able to take a look at that. I mean, there are also a lot of different webinars that I'm seeing around that talk about mental health. And you know, it's so I love that inner child. So the child, right, from a you personal individual standpoint, take it, right? So that you can really be able to safeguard your own inner child. But from a business standpoint, also, it's very good for us to have more information actually on mental health, and see it from a, you know, like what you said, from a, like, how do we become mental health ambassadors or responders, right? First responders, if, you know, we don't have enough mental health workers that are here. And they're all probably also, they're frontliners also, you know, and they're also taking care of so many people right now. And on that note, I know that, Jen, you're also doing your own research and your own you know, studying of mental health to support or be an ally in that system. And for me, on my end, I'm actually taking up my certification in trauma tension and trauma releasing exercises, which is a body-based approach in dealing with stress and tension in the body, so that, you know, with everything that's happening in our mental health space, we also need to be able to take care of our body, right? Because it's a trifecta. It's our mind, it's our heart, but it's also our body. And sometimes we forget about that.
Well, your mind and your heart are part of your body, right?
Correct. Yes. Oh,
technically
they are. But sometimes we forget, right?
Yeah.
Number one person guilty of it is me. So yeah, but you know that this particular body-based approach to healing, this body-based approach healing modality, so to speak, has really changed also my life and my perspective on things. You know, that there are times when we store so much stress because we just have to keep it together and we just have to get on, that we forget that our body's energy, our gas tank is just below red. And we're actually just, you know, negotiating with it to keep on going, right? And so we need to take care of that. And we cannot forget the trifecta, right? The mind, the heart, and the body, right? So yeah. Absolutely. So Jen, what are the other do you have any other recommendations that you wanted to share with the group based on your research, because and all of your other interviews that that have really highlighted the importance of creating these programs at work?
Well, we have so many resources on mental health, as you mentioned, now because it's been recognized as a great need. The Uploan website also has these really great tips for when you're actually feeling the stress in the middle of the day. Our blogs are really easy. Actually, the blogs are quite a read. So I would suggest like our Facebook page or our LinkedIn
Nice.
page, because they're in these cool little photos that honestly I screenshot them, and sometimes on bad days I use them as my lock screen just to remind myself of these things, like even just how to breathe, which we spoke about the last time, and things like forcing yourself to turn your camera on and see another person when you're speaking to them is a socializing and normalizing habit. So when you can look at somebody in the face and speak with them to make that connection, because we're social beings, and you know this better than anybody. Stories are what make us human, and just sitting and telling a story about your day, even if it's a sad story, that's all right.
Yeah.
Because that's something in my personal life that I've been hesitant about reaching out to people about, because I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, right? I don't want to be the one that's like always making everybody like sad. But I think everybody is at a point where we're ready to support each other now. I think we know that everything that matters is going to be a long haul, because this whole once in 100 years pandemic has been a really long ride. And let's just start to groove with it, ride those emotional waves. Let's not pretend anymore.
Agreed. Jen, thank you for sharing that. All I could think about when you were saying that was, let's normalize it. Let's normalize talking about it, that you're not okay, and just be okay with it, right? Again, I agree with you. It's not that we want to be Debbie Downers. If we could put on, a sparkly aura every single day, I think everybody's gonna want that, right? But there are just some days, guys, where, as cliche as it may sound, it's okay not to be okay, and we need to be able to normalize that. And when I say normalize it, is that we get to talk about it. And sometimes all it takes is for someone to listen, right? All it takes is for someone to listen to it, right? And to just be able to help each other fill up that cup. Now, I understand that it's also hard, if you're an empath, and we're sponges as well. But I think that there are also ways, like what you said, Jen. I can't wait to see the tips and tricks also from the Uploan, the Uploan nuggets of wisdom posts, right? Of, some tips and tricks on how to also not be a sponge for that, but to just create and hold the space. And if you cannot, it's okay to just say, today I can't. But we have to normalize it, that it's okay for people to be able to talk about it, because everybody's going through that roller coaster ride that you were talking about.
Yeah, maybe before we end our let's is it okay if I summarize a couple of things
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
affect an employee's state of mind at work, right? Because these are the things we address with those posts that I mentioned. It's really job insecurity. So these are the things that your mental health policy would have to address, right? Job insecurity. This is making everybody feel essential at work. Excessive pressure. So that's the workplace stress people are thinking about. Usually that affects work-life balance. Next is lack of appreciation. Obviously, hostile workplace conditions and unpleasant relationships with colleagues or managers. So that last one is something that I think people worry about when we start talking about personal things and emotions at work. you are scared of making things unpleasant, right? So it helps to set guidelines for it. And those are the things that you just said now. Like, I can't do this right now is maybe the most blunt way to say it. There are many ways that managers can set the tone for this within their teams. Also, cross training, cross team support, and interaction between people of the same role but do different jobs are ways that your mental health policy can frame this and create a safe space so that there's no risk of delving into that unpleasant relationship or creating something toxic that's not work related but will
Yeah.
affect work. Yeah.
No, Jen, this is absolutely amazing. Just going through your list. And I just want to be able to say those things again, right? For all of our listeners, it's really the things that affect our people is job insecurity, excessive pressure at work, work-life imbalance, right? A lack of appreciation, hostile workplace conditions, and unpleasant relationships at work. And just going through this list, Jen, I've had experiences of that stress because of it, right? Like I could actually pinpoint certain things that have happened, not only during the 18 months. That's not what I'm talking about. Like, in general, these are things that could really, really stress you out at work and can affect your mental health. What more now, right? What more now when, again, like we don't have as much quote unquote freedom to be able to shake things off outside or do hobbies, especially the physical and geographical hobbies that we want, like traveling or just getting an ice cream or a drink at a bar. We can't do that yet. So I can just imagine how heightened these, stressors are. And that will definitely affect folks at work. And it's fabulous to know that Uploan does have these tips and tricks, and I would love for our listeners to be able to catch glimpses of those, ladies and gents, because I think that it's just really important for us to work together in, again, safeguarding that overall mental health mental health energy. I'm just gonna call it mental health energy.
Yes, let's normalize
well.
talking about energy at work. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. So, Jen, we are coming to a close already of our conversation. I know that there was a lot of things that we've already talked about, and I loved how our conversation has really flowed from really talking about the business aspect of it, but more importantly, our own advocacy. I think yours and mine combined, and talking life and talking real, because it is what's very important, right? But I do want to ask you, if you, out of the many things that we've said, Jen, which is a lot, I'm so sorry, but out of the many things that we've talked about, what do you want to leave our listeners with? I mean, for the rest of the week, for the rest of the month, as we rally behind normalizing so many of the things that we talked about, what's the one thing that you want to leave our listeners for this week?
Finding motivation being at the top of the list of employee concerns regarding mental health speaks volumes of how much we've grown as Filipino workers, right? The reason for our investment of ourselves means more now than it ever did before. And I think that's what everybody should really be thinking about.
I love that.
And I would leave them with that, I think.
Because that's a beautiful, very deep thing. Like, you can take it as a nugget of wisdom. You can take it as, a simple thing. But actually, if you really dig deep, it's a challenge. It's a big challenge, actually, for so many people out there, because finding motivation and talking about it and actually making it part of the agenda touches on so many different things. And I actually want to echo that, Jen. I think that from everything that we've talked about as well, what I just also want to leave our business leaders with, right, is as we talk about mental health and overall well-being, because I'm already claiming it that it is part of the agenda of every single business that's out there, because it should be part of their own personal agenda, right? Is that as we talk about finding motivation and making that ecosystem work, what we were talking about, I want you guys to know that you don't need to look far. You just need to look at yourself and you need to dig deep with yourself. What do you need to make this happen? Because you are a person, you should also be safeguarding your energy, safeguarding your mental health. What do you need to find motivation? What do you need to ride that beautiful and also challenging road trip that Jen was, talking about earlier, like, the peaks and valleys of it all? What do you need? Start with that, and I promise you so many other ideas, recommendations, and insights are going to flow, right? And don't forget, experimentation is okay. Experimentation is okay. All right, awesome, Jen. I love this conversation. I love talking about it with you because I know that, you and I have just, always loved the topic, but more importantly, it's because we really feel that it's going to be a game changer. Not only does it make business sense, but it makes future sense. And as we go into 2022, it's so important to already look forward, right? And really claim this quote unquote unfolding normal. Jen, you spoke a lot about references. So before I let you go, please tell everybody where to find you, right? And just in case they need to know more or have more, tips and tricks from Uploan or just even Level Up Podcast. Go ahead.
Great. Well, we're on all of the podcast platforms, but the easiest way to really learn about everything that we put out there is uploan.ph/podcasts. The resource that you want to download from for your mental health policy is resources.workable.com. Check it out. Everything is at your fingertips. I believe in you.
We believe in you. Jen has spoken, ladies and gentlemen. Again, please check out those different resources. Everything is at your fingertips, and we can make it happen. I know that it can be intimidating, ladies and gents, but don't be intimidated by it. We all need it, right? And again, you don't need to go far. Just look at yourself. Dig deep. All right, so that is it for the B2B Breakfast to Business October podcast. Thank you once again to our beautiful and amazing Jen for sharing your time and for sharing your wisdom, but more importantly, for sharing your heart. And I'm just going to say it, may the force be with you. May the energy be with you. Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bea. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of B2B Breakfast to Business with your morning girl, Bea Lim. Please don't forget to tune in to Team Asia's social media accounts to keep yourself updated on these breakfast happenings. Remember to stay safe. See you again soon here at B2B Breakfast to Business. Thank you. Ciao.
Breakfast to